Donald Trump just kicked out the press from the Oval Office during a bizarre press conference he held on Saturday with Joe Rogan in the Oval Office. And this came at the same time that the press was asking him questions about Iran.
So MeidasTouch just exposed Trump literally kicking reporters out of the Oval Office when they started asking hard questions about Iran. This is massive. We're seeing a president caught in outright lies about foreign policy, while Iran closes the world's most critical oil choke point. Let's break this down.
You see, earlier on Saturday morning, Iran announced that it was once again fully closing the Strait of Hormuz. Iran said that the Trump regime's bad faith negotiation tactics, the continued misrepresentations by Donald Trump of Iran's negotiation positions, the continued blockade over the Persian Gulf, and the continued escalation and threats by Donald Trump made negotiations untenable.
The Strait of Hormuz handles 21% of global petroleum liquids. That's about 21 million barrels daily, worth roughly $1.2 billion. When Iran shuts this down, gas prices spike immediately. Notice Iran's specific accusation. Trump is actively misrepresenting their positions. That's calling him a liar on the world stage.
Iran said while it was previously permitting some ships to cross through the Strait of Hormuz, provided it was coordinated with Iran, they are shutting that down. And so some of the ships that we saw leaving the Strait of Hormuz using the ship tracker satellite, they suddenly turned back, and we also learned that Iran was actually shooting at some of those ships that at first were refusing to listen to Iran's orders to head back. Iran ultimately got all of the ships that were leaving to go back to where they started, and the Strait of Hormuz is once again fully closed.
Iran just demonstrated they can force commercial vessels to turn around at gunpoint. That Indian flagship getting hit shows Iran isn't bluffing. They have the naval capability to enforce their blockade. This is military escalation happening in real time, not diplomatic theater.
Also, Iran's leadership is saying it has no current intentions to meet up with the United States before the ceasefire deadline expires on Wednesday, and Iran says it is fully prepared to go back to war with the United States if that's what Donald Trump wants to do by not agreeing to negotiate within Iran's 10-point negotiating framework that Donald Trump previously agreed to.
Wednesday's deadline creates massive pressure. Iran claims Trump agreed to their 10-point framework, then reneged. That's accusing the president of breaking his word in international negotiations. If accurate, Trump just destroyed American credibility when we need it most.
They were asking him questions about his claim that Iran was agreeing to all of these things and that the American military was going to join forces with the Iranian military to go and get the nuclear material and bring it back to the United States, and that Iran was no longer going to fund proxy groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis and the Shiite militias in Iraq, which Iran said 100% false, or Donald Trump's representations that the Strait of Hormuz would be fully open without the control of Iran, which Iran denied.
Iran's denying every major Trump claim. Joint military operations, cutting proxy funding, opening Hormuz. These aren't minor details. They're the foundation of Trump's supposed deal. Either Trump fundamentally misunderstood the negotiations, or he's deliberately lying to Americans about progress.
So the press wanted to ask him those types of questions, right, after they regurgitated and spewed like stenographers what he was feeding to them on Friday. And then Donald Trump just said, out, get out. Let me show you the moment that went down.
Confident leaders take tough questions. When you kick out reporters asking about your biggest foreign policy crisis, you're admitting you can't defend your position. This defensive behavior suggests Trump knows his Iran claims are falling apart publicly.
Let's talk about what was going down this morning, what Donald Trump wants to distract us from, which we will not be distracted from. So commercial vessels began reporting multiple attacks in the Strait of Hormuz earlier this morning as Iran attempted to close the strait once again. At least one ship, we believe that was an Indian flag ship, was hit by potentially unknown projectiles when Iran was shooting at it, when it refused to turn around at first. And we were able to hear the radio traffic. They were saying, safe by Navy, you gave us permission. And Iran said, no, turn back right now. We are shutting this down right now. And then all of the ships returned. Iran confirmed that the Strait of Hormuz was fully closed.
Those radio communications are devastating. Ships saying, "Safe by Navy, you gave us permission," shows there was coordination that broke down. Iran's response, "No, turn back right now," indicates Trump's intelligence or diplomatic teams completely missed Iran's position shift.
A spokesperson for Iran's Revolutionary Guard says the Islamic Republic of Iran, following previous agreements, has consented with good intentions in the negotiations conducted to allow a limited number of oil tankers and commercial ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz in a managed manner. But unfortunately, the Americans, with their repeated breaches of trust that are part of their track record, continue to engage in piracy and maritime theft under the so-called title of blockade. For this reason, control of the Strait of Hormuz has returned to its previous state, and this strategic strait is under the strict management and control of the armed forces.
Iran's calling American actions piracy and maritime theft. That's diplomatic language for war crimes. When they reference America's track record of broken trust, they're telling other nations the U.S. can't be relied on. That damages every future negotiation.
Attention all ships, regarding the failure of the U.S. government to fulfill its commitments in the negotiation, Iran declares the Strait of Hormuz completely closed again. No vessel of any type or nationality is allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz.
Broadcasting failure of the U.S. government to fulfill its commitments on international maritime channels means every navy worldwide heard Iran formally accuse America of breaking its word. This isn't private diplomacy, it's public humiliation of American credibility.
So there are reports of some people making $760 million by betting on falling oil prices just minutes before recent announcements regarding the Strait of Hormuz. Sound familiar? Laugh face emoji. Other than his consistent pattern of losing political gambles, the only other reliable constant about Trump is his corruptness. That's what's coming out of Iran's social media.
$760 million in oil futures trading right before the announcement screams insider information. During the 2008 financial crisis, similar patterns led to major prosecutions. If Trump's inner circle is profiting from foreign policy failures, that's impeachment-level corruption.
Iran's deputy foreign minister, Saeed Khatibzadeh, says Donald Trump talks too much. He needs to think before he speaks. He says all of these contradictory things, but if Donald Trump really means that he wants to go back to war with us, that he's not going to pursue a ceasefire in good faith, that he's not going to negotiate within the 10-point framework, then we are prepared to defend Iran.
When Iran's deputy foreign minister says Trump talks too much and needs to think before he speaks, that's diplomatic language for calling him incompetent. Iran's essentially saying they don't take Trump seriously as a negotiating partner. That's catastrophic for American influence.
Reminder, Trump said yesterday he expected a deal within a day or two. As our editor-in-chief Ron Filipkowski also explains, the worst possible tactic you can use when negotiating a deal with a regime like Iran is to dunk on them in public during negotiations. Any knowledgeable, seasoned diplomat knows this, but we have Mr. Art of the Deal who needs to feed his cult and the markets a steady diet of BS. We also are learning that Iran's supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, says the country's navy is ready to inflict new bitter defeats on its enemies.
Exactly right. Public humiliation kills negotiations. Smart diplomats know saving face is crucial in Middle Eastern culture. Trump's reality TV approach, where he dunks on opponents, works for rallies, but destroys delicate international relationships. Iran's military threats prove it backfired.
But you know, when you have propaganda media out there like the New York Post and state regime media like Fox, this is what the front page of the New York Post is today, setting them straight. Iran surrenders Hormuz, and Trump says peace deal close. The height of propaganda right there. It's ridiculous. We'll keep you posted every step of the way. Hit subscribe.
The New York Post headline, "Iran surrenders Hormuz," is pure propaganda when Iran literally just closed it and shot at ships. This misinformation prevents Americans from understanding we're potentially heading toward war. Truth matters when lives are at stake.